Okay, this is Mr Pelargonium and I'm just going to chat through bringing large potted plants in from the outdoors that you've had outside during the summer that you want to take through into your greenhouse during the winter. The main issue is cleaning them up. It's quite a lengthy process if you've got a really big plant, as in this case. One of the key things is removing bugs and debris from the plant. And we've just seen there that I found a caterpillar by the time I just really got started on the process. I knew there were going to be caterpillars on the plant because a lot of the leaves had just had little nicks and cuts taken out of them, where the caterpillars had been feeding. But realistically, bringing a big potted plant such as this inside does require a lot of cleaning up because, of course, in your greenhouse, you want to keep it relatively clean during the winter. And you're also preparing the plant for much damper conditions that you will get particularly during a UK winter when we get a lot of rain. So you want to be clearing down a lot of the leaf, basically opening it up to be able to allow air to get round the stems so that you don't get problems with things like botrytis, which is a real issue, particularly for the zonal types during the winter period. Now you can see here, I mean, I got that initial caterpillar off, but I found quite a few others whilst doing this process. This is in a 12-inch clay pot. It's a large plant of one of my own stellar varieties called Robin Louise. It does grow relatively strongly for a dwarf plant. But it's got really dense. It's done very well. It was certainly over potted initially in the early part of the summer. So the key thing now is getting rid of any slightly, mottled, cut or discoloured leaves. They're all being pulled out. And lots of different sort of anything that's a bit discoloured, strip down any large growing leaves that are overhanging stems and that sort of thing. This has got a few sort of support sticks in it, which I have retained. But I can't get over enough that you want to clear a good number of the leaves off because during the winter you want as much air circulation around these stems as is really possible. And so you're going to need to strip the plant down. It's always good to make it ensure that it's on the dry side prior to doing this. Primarily because in a moment we're going to give it a bit of a mixture of a root drench insecticide and a good feed as well. It's important just to make sure it's on the dry side as well in case you want to just nick off a few of the upper stems. But the main key thing here is stripping it down, enabling the plant to be able to breathe during the winter. Now, this is quite an open compost that I've got in here. You can perhaps see at the top there's a lot of grit and a lot of perlite in it, which I always think is quite important for plants that are outside, because in the UK we do get quite a bit of rain, unfortunately, during an English summer. We have done in this last summer of 2020. But you can see here now I'm just stripping down. I found earlier a little cocoon of a spider. I usually chuck those outside. There's no need to destroy them, where spiders are our friends. You don't want to harm them with any spraying that we will do at the end of the process, just to make sure that the plant is going to be nice and clean that's coming into the greenhouse during the winter that's upcoming. So what I'm doing now, I've got a little measure there that I'm going to use to pour in a root drench insecticide. Now these are not actually that easy to get anymore. They're not allowed to be sold in the EU. You may be able to get them in the US, but I've just got a lot of old stock that I use from when I used to have the nursery. Now I've just added some feed in there as well, nice balanced feed at full strength, and I'm watering this all in now to thoroughly drench the root ball. And this is primarily because we've had problems with vine weevil, if you've just seen in one or two of the earlier videos that I've done. and we need to ensure that any mealybug or vine weevil that's in that root base is killed off, and that's what we're primarily doing here with this root drench insecticide. So that's the basis. We've opened it up. We stripped a lot of the leaves off, a lot of the base leaves as well, so that the air can get around all of those stems. I may even take a few more off as the sort of autumn progresses, just to make sure that it's nice and clean. And the air can circulate freely around the stems. That's the key thing with potted plants that you keep in your greenhouse that you're overwintering. Now, the final part really to this, that's more or less done now. I will stand it outside just to drain off. But the key final thing is just to give it a spray of an ordinary base sort of insecticide, just to make sure there's nothing left that's attached to the leaves. I had quite a few caterpillars. A lot of these insecticides don't really affect caterpillars, but it's just to make sure there's no sort of green fly, white fly, or any of that type of thing that's left on the plant, just to give it a final clean up before it can be proudly stood, in your greenhouse for the winter period that's upcoming. Now, we're pretty fortunate in the UK at the moment that we're having a pretty sort of relatively dry autumn at the moment. So this is going to get plenty of air to be able to dry off. But it's been given a good sort of feed as well with the drench that I did a moment ago. And that's just about it. I'm quite happy with that now to sit in the greenhouse. It's not bringing any awful creatures in from the outdoors summer period. And that's all done and ready to be seated and look after for the winter. Please subscribe to this channel, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. You can follow Mr Pelargonium on both Twitter and Instagram under Mr Pelargonium, and you can follow the Pelargonium and Geranium Society on Facebook. Or you can visit the PAGS website at thepags.org.uk.